Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Deep from Three. It feels weird, fellas, saying good evening as opposed to good afternoon. But as always, from Deep from Three, I'm Devin Withers, joined by my good friends Isaiah Hansen and Gary Sunnyberger. Fellas, we're getting close to Game 3. This is an emergency podcast episode because there's a lot to catch up on. How are we feeling tonight?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm tired because it's 8:30. We normally don't do stuff this late, but I'm great. I'm excited. These games, though, 9 o'clock tip off. Come on, man. The East Coast. I gotta get up for work in the morning. What's going on here? I get it. I get it. Can't have people come into the Warriors games at like 2 p.m. West Coast time. But
Oh my
still,
God.
it's a little late. It's a little late for me.
I hear you. But you know what? We could not go another week. Like this, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. There's a lot of stuff that's bound to happen. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go. I've been watching Mr. Wardell Stephen Curry go off. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, fellas, obviously, like people all have said, tons to catch up on. We could physically not wait another week because we were just overwhelmed from the Lakers hirings, which we're going to get to later. We're going to be talking about DeAndre Ayton, and we're also going to be, of course, starting off with this NBA Final Series, which has most of us on the edge of our seats between the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. And we're going to start off with a really general question that I had to change halfway through the day because at first I wanted to say who was the best player in this series, but I felt like it was going to be unanimous that Steph Curry has been the best statistically to this point. But Isaiah, let me start with you. Who's been the most impressive player through the first two games?
I'm glad I asked it that way because you're right. If you would have said who was the best player, I definitely would have gone Stephen Curry, and it's really not close. Like I said before, Curry's the type of guy you put him on the front court, you get him a beach chair, and he's going to have two defenders on him at all times, no matter where he's sitting at. But nevertheless, Draymond Green, okay? Like Draymond Green, he's gotten a lot of flack over the years. He's not everybody's cup of tea. He's a dirty player at times, but you know what? He is doing those things to the best of his abilities. And after game one, I'm not going to lie to you, I was really genuinely scared. I was worried. Klay Thompson hasn't quite looked like himself. Jordan Poole has been good, but, you know, he's a younger player. He's not used to this type of stage. And game two comes around, and Draymond Green says, you know what, I got this. I'm done with this. And he goes in, and he starts getting in guys' face and everything. Like, you know, I hate it. I would hate it if I was a Celtics fan. He would drive me literally insane. But because I'm rooting for the Warriors, seeing him go to battle, it's a welcome sight to see, you know. And I think it's putting some life into the rest of the team. And that would just feels like such a massive difference from game one. Like coming out of game one, I'm like, okay, this might go 7 games. I gotta say, if Draymond keeps up this type of pressure, I wouldn't put it past the Celtics to win one more game. But he is in the head of guys like Jason Tatum and a little bit of Jaylen Brown. You know, and I think that's going to make a big difference. We might go 5 or 6 games, and I got the Warriors, of course.
Oh, so you're still sticking with the Warriors right now. We're 1-1. We're back in Boston.
Don't get me wrong.
Like the Warriors?
The Celtics have made me incorrect. I've been voting against them all NBA playoffs. I'm doing it again, damn it. But, you know, I'm starting to get
Okay, all right. Gary, how about you? The most impressive player during this series. Isaiah makes a lot of great points. Steph Curry, obviously, I think has been the best player. But for you, who in this series between both sides has been the most impressive?
To me, okay, and before I say this name here, Isaiah might have an aneurysm and or say, like, I told you so, I told you so. But I think really, and if we're going on most impressive, I also looked at this as someone who's going to be the most important that they are impressive, is the man, oh, I can see him, he's waiting for it, Jaylen Brown. Listen, I know that in the past, me and Jaylen Brown have not been on speaking terms. We have not been talking well. I tried to, he got a message from Isaiah the other day telling him he needed to kick his ass in gear, and he look what he did. He had 24-7-5 in game one, which was pretty impressive. He had a great fourth quarter scoring. I think he actually leads the NBA playoffs this season in fourth quarter scoring. And I know Isaiah is sitting there with a giant smile on his face, pointing at his eyes, telling me he's watching. But really, I do think that without the Celtics being able, with the Celtics being able to free up Jaylen Brown as their secondary scorer, because we know that Jason Tatum is going to get the most attention when it comes to the defensive end for Golden State. When they relied on Al Horford in game one, it gave a lot of space for Jason Tatum to do what he wanted to do. You can see him opening more up as a creator. You see him kind of evolving his way as a basketball player when it comes to being the first option, getting everybody involved. You can only do so much. And when Jaylen Brown comes in and takes that load off of him, it makes it so much easier for Jason Tatum to go off. Makes it so much easier for guys like Derek White, who is averaging 16 points a game in this series. Makes it really easy for guys like Al Horford to pop off for a couple of threes and show that he has that vintage game back in him like we were used to seeing when he played for Atlanta, or maybe his first tenure with the Boston Celtics. But really, I do think that Jaylen Brown is not only going to become the most impressive, but will be the most important player for Golden State or for Boston in this series, because just how much his ability can free up Jason Tatum. I'm not saying he's better than Jason Tatum, and I will not ever say that he's better than Jimmy Buckets, who was one three-pointer away from beating this team and sending us, the Miami Heat, represent to the NBA Finals this year. However, Jaylen Brown is the most important piece on this Celtics team right now going forward.
And Barry, you were one of I remember in our last episode, you and Isaiah both were heavily at least leaning towards picking the Warriors going into the series. After seeing the first two games and you saying Jaylen Brown the most impressive player in the series, are you still over there with the Warriors, or are you sort of leaning back over to Boston now?
I am going to say a tentative Warriors in 6, possibly 7. I would say that maybe the game, it stretches out. You just need one good game for Jason Tatum and for Jaylen Brown. You've seen them go off before, and like Michael mentions, you have to get something. You have to get something out of your role players. Al Horford didn't take any shots in game 2, whereas opposed to game 1, he was shooting the lights out. And maybe that's the difference that you have when it comes to winning a basketball game in the NBA Finals. Just one guy going off. We've seen it in the past. You have a Danny Green going off for the Spurs in the early 2010s. You've got a Mike Miller going off for the Heat. You had a random Fred VanVleet couple of games for the Raptors those couple of years ago. Sometimes your star players, they do what they can, but it's those role guys who pop off and show up. So right now, I think that, I'm going to go Warriors in 6, possibly 7. But I wonder, Devin, are you switching sides on us? I know you decided Warriors, but you seem a little bit hesitant. You want us to say some hot takes, but you got some of your own.
So listen, here's what I think, right? Because a good point was made about Al Horford in comparison from game 1 to game 2. I think the same can be said on the other side when it comes to Jordan Poole for the Golden State Warriors. Game 1 did not play well whatsoever. Game 2, he puts up 17 points. 14 of those points came in the second half. He was the youngest player in NBA history to hit 5 different three-point shots during that game 2. The youngest ever at 22 years old. And then just to wrap it all into a nice bow and a little gift, when Jordan Poole scores over 10 points, a measly 10 points, 5 different buckets, the Golden State Warriors in this particular playoff series, as in like the beginning of the playoffs to this point, they're 12-3 in those games. 12-3 is not a coincidence when you're talking. That's a trend. That's a pattern. So Mike makes a great point. He talks about Al Horford. I think Al Horford for the Boston Celtics is basically the same role as Jordan Poole for the Golden State Warriors. And it's funny because I was looking at the NBA.com key ladder. So who is going to have the best odds to win the NBA Finals MVP? And of course, Steph Curry is number 1, but number 2 is Jordan Poole. Number 3, Kevon Looney is number 3, and then behind those 3 are Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Kevon Looney has a better chance at the NBA Finals MVP than either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Obviously, if the Celtics win, it's going to be a completely different story. You can't give it to Kevon Looney because he's on the losing team. Otherwise, we would have seen LeBron James do the whole entire thing when he lost, when he was back on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll tell you this. I'm still sticking with the Celtics, but I have this going all the way down until game 7. I think we're going to see 7 games. I think those 2 games were completely different tales. And in about 20 minutes, I'm excited to see which tale of the tape we sort of get. Is going to be the Celtics team that, when they were facing Milwaukee, that they were shooting 55 different three-point shots, or is it going to be the tale of the low-scoring team that just turns the ball over too often? I don't know which tale we're going to get.
I can't wait. I've got the TV on in the other room. It's off, but like if the channel is set to the right thing, once
Same.
we're done here, I'm popping off right over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm interested in the fact that you mentioned just like when it comes to the Boston Celtics, just the ability for them to really just have these games where they shoot 53s and they happen to make 25 of them. And that's all you need to win some of these games. Now, it does hurt them in some cases, like last game where they basically, what they get, like 89 points was the final total for the day. That's not a lot. And of course, maybe 25 years ago, that's a normal game score. But in today's NBA, you're scoring 100 points. And if you're not, something went wrong. So I'm excited to see what kind of Celtics team we get. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we definitely want to keep the train moving. And obviously, this is a huge series. This is the main event, right, of the whole entire series.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Michael just made what I kind of wanted to sneak in there. I did not even mention Klay Thompson. He hasn't been himself. At some point in this playoffs, he's going to go off. And if that's the case, if Klay Thompson, for instance, I'm not saying he will, if he goes off tonight and he's Klay Thompson that we're used to for the rest of the series, we end in 5 games.
You saw the
You're throwing a "we" in there. You're putting the big old "we" in front of you and Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, so Mike posted in there and he said Game 6 Clay. Did you guys see the interview where a reporter was asking him, what do you do when you're sort of in that slump? And he goes onto YouTube and he just looks up Game 6 Clay. And so I think that's perfect. That's perfect. He needs to watch some of those highlights going into Game 3 because I don't know if we want to wait until Game 6. You don't want to give Boston that advantage now that you're back over at TD Bank.
Right.
Hey, Game 3 is just half of 6, so he just needs to do half of what he does there. And if the full thing is 50 points, then half of it 25. I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that the series is back in Boston, a lot of other events have happened in the NBA that we really haven't had the opportunity to catch up on. Probably one of the biggest headlines that we're going to look at this offseason is none other than DeAndre Ayton. The rumors are circulating that DeAndre Ayton won't be returning to Phoenix next season. He becomes a restricted free agent this offseason. If he comes back over to Phoenix, he has the eligibility to sign a 5-year, $176.9 million max contract. I'll be honest with you, I was on our writing platform at different points throughout the last couple of days because I found a little bit of free time. And I was going to make a piece about how DeAndre Ayton isn't worth a max contract in today's NBA, but in a league where Chandler Parsons and so many other, mediocre players are making millions and millions of dollars, you got to assume that DeAndre Ayton, if he's not playing under a max contract with Phoenix, he's going to find a max contract somewhere else on a 4-year deal. So, Isaiah, let me ask you this. If Phoenix does not have DeAndre Ayton on their roster in the 2022-23 season, are they still competing for an NBA title?
They're barely competing for an NBA title with him. So you really can't let him go. And, it's not that I think he's worth that max contract. I probably wouldn't, like if in a perfect scenario world, I wouldn't. But when you're Phoenix, it's not like you have free agents waiting at the door for you, knocking to try to come in and join the team. And Chris Paul is not getting any younger. Devin Booker is who he is. We've yet to see Devin Booker truly take over. Like he's a star, he's a superstar, but it's just always something missing. So you need Chris Paul, you need Devin Booker, you need a big man like DeAndre Ayton. It's not like you have one waiting in the wings, unless you do, and maybe they go sign Rudy Gobert. And is that even worth it? I don't think so. I mean, it might be, but I don't know. I don't know. You got to think about what you got to get rid of to get him. So if you're the Phoenix Suns, you need to be in win now mode, and winning now includes a scenario that means bringing back DeAndre Ayton. If you're them, you cannot afford to let him go. Chris Paul is going to be gone soon. Devin Booker is who he is, but he can't do it on his own. So you have to keep Ayton to have any chance of competing.
So you're signing DeAndre Ayton 5 years, 176, because you're not getting a discount. He's playing their max contract regardless.
If this was the Lakers, no, because the Lakers, they're always going to be able to attract some free agents, right? But this is the Phoenix Suns. Come on, it's so hot over there. Like nobody's trying to go to. Like Chris Paul was traded there. Come on,
Yeah.
nobody's going over there. So if them, unfortunately, you have no choice. You have to go all in, just like the Utah Jazz did when they signed Rudy Gobert. You got to just go all in. You got to deal with what you have.
Yeah. Gary, are you sort of on the same page? I mean, listen, the Suns are plus 700. Those are their odds, plus 700 to represent the NBA Finals next season in 2023. But are you taking those odds? Are you confident that with or without DeAndre Ayton, this is a team that is competing in the Western Conference?
I think like with a team without DeAndre Ayton, especially Phoenix, who relied so much on him defensively for his ability to switch on the perimeter as a big guy. You see it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Heat, which is exactly how they use Bam Adebayo on the perimeter defensively. He's a big dude who's quick enough that can switch. And for a championship contending team, that's like the thing you need. And he also is pretty big in the sense that he can guard those Jokic's. And if you do make it to the finals, those Embiids, those Bams, and in the Western Conference, you also have to include Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert in that list. Just in terms of like top 5 centers, top 6 centers in the league who are going to pose a challenge to you on both the perimeter and the interior. So for Phoenix, I don't think they can win without him, but I don't even see him entertaining staying. After what happened and like what some reports were getting out of Phoenix, just how dissatisfied he was during the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere else, even if they do offer him the max, which I also don't think they're going to do, because it would be not necessarily a bad thing to offer him the max. You would kind of like restrict yourself financially, but I don't think that I think, if you're Phoenix, you think you can, you have to have some confidence in yourself that you'll be able to get a guy under his contract that can give you like 16 and 10. He averaged 17 and 10 on 63% from the field last year. That's incredibly good. And the fact that he's only 23 years old, whatever team lands him for a 5-year, $175 million from the Suns, I don't know what the max would be. 4 years, I think it's 145, 155, something like that. That's a steal when you consider a guy who will be 28 by the next time his contract's up. If you can get a guy like that on any number of young teams looking to maybe push their playoff success forward, DeAndre Ayton's the guy. I just don't see him staying in Phoenix. But are they competing without him? Probably a second round exit at best, just because you got to add another year of Chris Paul. You don't have the guy that can set the screens for Booker and Paul like you used to. And unless Mikal Bridges gets a little bit better, I don't see them overcoming his defensive versatility on that end.
Yeah, so under a different team, it's 4 years, $131.15 million. So that's the
even cheaper.
Yeah, so
it's a little more manageable.
I'll tell you this is I think with or without DeAndre Ayton, I'm out on the Phoenix Suns after what I saw. I'm just out completely, 100%. They have the 4th best odds, and I'm scratching my head figuring out why that is. Like we've all mentioned, Chris Paul, another year older, I believe, is entering his age 36 season next season. Yeah, 36 is how old he turned earlier in May. And no, age 37 he turned in May. And then all of a sudden we're talking about a team that Isaiah said, there was reports coming out that he was very dissatisfied. Maybe it was Gary that said it, very dissatisfied. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think, as much as Isaiah says you have to sign him to the max, but get him the hell away from Phoenix, because that man is a headache and a half.
I just think with you're disrespecting the best shooting guard in the league a little bit. Devin Booker sitting over here. Who you got over him? Who's the best shooting guard in the league? Is it Donovan Mitchell? Is it James Harden? And not that there's a big giant there's not a lot of shooting guards I could put up in that vault of like top 5 in the league. Are you counting Kyrie because he's kind of plays a little bit of shooting guard? He's not really the point guard over there. Like Devin Booker, in my opinion, is the best shooting guard in the league. And I think when you have a top player at any position, you kind of have to give them a little bit of credit when it comes to contending, even if they don't have the greatest pieces around them.
It depends what we mean by contending, because we know they'll be in the playoffs. Or at least we think they'll be in the playoffs. But we both we all know we're talking about NBA Finals here. Look,
Yeah.
the fourth best odds. I could think of literally 6 right now off the top of my head that I have above them: Golden State, Nuggets, Miami Heat, Celtics. Not the Lakers. I don't know. Yeah, that's about it.
Just throwing shots over here. Not the
Yes.
Lakers, prop. Not the Nets.
Not the Nets.
So the Suns have the 5th best odds. So I'm looking at it right now. As of 2 days ago, it was Warriors, Celtics, Nets, Bucks, and then the Suns were the teams with the top 5 odds.
That sounds about right. I don't think that's crazy.
And
Crazy,
you know,
I'm trying to think of who they didn't include.
you know what is crazy though? Do you guys remember on ESPN? I mean, it's hard to forget when Patrick Beverley made his appearance on ESPN after the Minnesota Timberwolves were eliminated, and he made a great. This was the one thing I loved about Patrick Beverley is he's going to be really entertaining after he retires because he's going to ESPN and his personality is just going to take over. But I'll tell you what, he made a good point when he said, Gary says, "Oh, the best shooting guard in the league." Patrick Beverley would say, what has he done? What has he done throughout the years with his time with Phoenix? He hasn't really done much of anything up until this point. He hasn't.
He was in the NBA Finals last year. He was a top 5 MVP finisher. I'm not saying he's like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, but don't disrespect Devin Booker just because he's young. He's got time. He's 24? Come on, he's got time.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time. I'm telling you what, though, DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul, for different reasons, they're running out of time with the Phoenix Suns, in my opinion.
True.
So let me ask you this, Gary. If you and me both are on the same page that we don't think DeAndre Ayton is going to return to Phoenix next season, if he's not in a Phoenix Suns uniform, where would you like to see DeAndre Ayton for next season?
I want to see him play for the Charlotte Hornets.
I
want that so bad. I want to see him in LaMelo. I want to see him in Bridges. I just want to, they haven't had a good big man since Al Horford. And even then, you would qualify him as like a below tier all-star. Great teammate, great player, but wasn't making those teams any better past than this 8-7 seed when he was the best player on those teams. So when you get a guy like LaMelo, who do you need guys for him to pass to. And I'm sorry, Terry Rozier, you're a great player. Top 10 shooting guard in the league. I did. We did do a little bit of an internal guessing vote game when it came to the top shooting guard in the league. Terry Rozier was on those lists, but I will say you need more people to pass it to, especially since you got the Zeller brothers, and what is that going to do for you? You might be able to set some hard screens and get a couple of offensive rebounds. When it comes to a guy in the post that you need to give it to, or a guy that can help you out defensively, where the Hornets have struggled this year, I would give it to him. I would love to see him there. Of course, there's a couple of other teams that you guys will probably mention that we'll talk about, but I think his best fit would be on the Hornets.
And so what's interesting, too, is I just saw today, because I was going to mention, if nobody else here had mentioned the Charlotte Hornets, we have to remember, if a team doesn't outright just get DeAndre Ayton through free agency, there's always the possibility of a sign and trade. And so I saw a rumor of a sign and trade in which I believe it was Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, and their first-round pick for DeAndre Ayton in a sign and trade. So let me ask you just really quickly, Gary, if that's the trade offer on your table and you're the Phoenix Suns, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, and a first-round pick this year, you take that or no?
It depends, because I know Miles Bridges bet on himself a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure how much he is under contract for, because he's going to be wanting a lot of money too. PJ Washington, he's a solid player, but I don't see him like being some sort of like blockbuster trade piece. I think honestly, if you're the Hornets and you need a younger center who you're going to get a good 4 or 5 years from, he rarely gets hurt. I would go with him. I would go with Dayton. I would take him. I would do that trade, and maybe not in a heartbeat. You got to think about that a little bit, but like I would definitely, on 2K, I'm hitting accept on that trade.
There you go. Isaiah, how about you? If it's not Phoenix for some reason next season, where would you like to see DeAndre Ayton? And don't tell me the New York Knicks.
Actually, I don't think I would want that because it's off his contract. But anyway, I will say this. I'm not thinking too much about their cap situation, so I could be off. But
Sure.
the first team that came to mind, I'm thinking about a guy that could really use a center right now. They have pretty good guard play. He was just facing the Golden State Warriors not too long ago, What about the Dallas Mavericks with a big guy like DeAndre? And don't you think Luka Doncic could get the most out of a guy? I mean, that sounds asinine because he's playing with Chris Paul, who usually would get the most from a guy like that. But nevertheless, I do think Luka could do some great things with Mr. Ayton. Now, I was thinking too, if he is on his way out of Utah, how about a place like Utah for DeAndre Ayton? I'm sorry, if Rudy Gobert is on his way.
Gobert was out, yeah.
Yes. I would think that would be. But first things comes to mind. I'm thinking about where can he truly affect the lineup and really potentially have a boosting impact. And I think that would be the Mavericks. I'm not thinking so much about the contract situation right now, so I don't know what their cap situation is. But it's not like they have free agents lining up at the door either.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Would you do a sign and trade for Brunson? For Brunson over there? You see how the Warriors are running these 3-guard lineups where they're doing Clay, Poole, and Steph.
I mean, I gotta say,
I would not.
No,
I think
okay.
you're absolutely insane.
Really like a real thing.
You are insane. If
no, because you got to keep in mind, like that also sets you up for when Chris Paul's gone. If you're in Phoenix, I like it. I kind of like it if I'm in there.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I'll tell you what, from my perspective, I just looked at affordability, and I love it. I think it's going to end up being some sort of sign and trade. I just think the numbers for a lot of these teams, like Isaiah mentioned, like Dallas has the 24th most when it comes to cap, so you're probably looking at some sort of sign and trade that would require a big piece, such as a Jalen Brunson or basically your whole entire future when it comes to draft picks. For me, affordability, I'm looking at a team like San Antonio that has been on the sort of the cusp of contending in the Western Conference, but you put together some sort of trade package that has like a Keldon Johnson or a Jacob Paltl or a couple first-round picks. I mean, I think Phoenix is going to be desperate to get rid of DeAndre Ayton, but, I mean, you got to go get DeJounte Murray some help out there. I mean, you can't just win with one player, and with Greg Popovich, I think Greg Popovich has one more season in him of head coaching, and then he's on his way out. And then after that, you sort of need this new chapter of a head coach to sort of come in and have a promising roster. I mean, you can't do that with just DeJounte Murray, especially in this Western Conference when teams like, even the New Orleans Pelicans or hopefully the Lakers will find their ways back into the playoffs. I mean, you never know. You never know, right? So I sort of went with the Spurs. If it's not the Spurs, another interesting team might be the Portland Trailblazers if they're looking to keep Damian Lillard and sort of contend with a big man out there. Huge defensive upgrade from Nurkic, I would think.
I don't think that moves the needle for Portland. Of course, like defensively, yeah, big upgrade. I would put Toronto's hat in the ring here.
Okay.
We saw OG Anunoby not very happy with the fact that Scotty Barnes is taking a lot of his minutes. Kind of deemed as the next big dude in Toronto when it comes to the wing position. You can do a trade for 8 and a sign and trade with him and OG Anunoby. Maybe Toronto finds that center they've been looking for, trying to substitute with 6'8" guys who can, run, pass, and kick, whatever that contest is. They're trying to just get all these versatile dudes. You know what I mean? The NFL skills thing where they do all the 12-year-olds go out and they kick the football.
Yeah.
That's essentially what they're trying to get there. They're trying to get 3 multifaceted guys, all this stuff running around. But they don't have a big dude. Maybe that's a guy like DeAndre Ayton. But I did love you bringing up the Spurs because that's a really underrated one. It's a great guy to play under Greg Popovich. A dude who can shoot, a dude who can, he's efficient. He doesn't play dumb basketball. He's a good defender. He's got to pair up with Murray. Come on, that's a solid pairing right there.
Yeah. See, I was going to say that too. Like, I like it if Pop is still going to be around. I don't know so much without him, but with Pop, yeah, I would like that fit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're getting towards these NBA finals, and I definitely want us to have enough time to enjoy the game itself. But I couldn't sleep at night if I had to go a whole entire another week just without mentioning the Lakers and their head coach hiring. I had Darvin Ham in my article when I said best head coaching vacancies for the Lakers. I believe I just did it alphabetical, but he was probably my number 1 or number 2 option. Gary, just really quick thoughts on Darvin Ham in general as a head coach, sort of the direction that the Lakers are going in from this point.
He talked about himself in his press conference the other day. He doesn't see himself as an offensive or defensive minded coach, which I thought was interesting. Kind of like a, all around, everything is important kind of guy. Just quickly, he used to be an assistant coach for the Lakers in 2011. Maybe it'll be a good idea to have somebody LeBron's age in the locker room. Little jab there. And then one little cool fact about him that I thought was really interesting and really positive. Not positive is the word, but he got shot in the face when he was 14 years old, and the fact that he's been able to come as far as he is as a player, then as a coach, assistant coach in the league, being one of the highly touted assistant coaches on the market the last 2 years, to now being the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. That's just an incredible story all around. What a great hire from a morale standpoint for the Lakers, a guy who used to be on this coaching staff. And I saw he talked to Russell Westbrook and said the key word they got out of it was sacrifice, which if you listen to any of the podcasts we've been talking about, that is the one thing I've always been asking Russ to do. Just take the ball out of his hands a little more. Do some stuff off the ball. Maybe he can finally get Russ to set a screen. Who knows? We'll see.
Only thing I need for Russell Westbrook to do is sacrifice the minutes that he's playing on a basketball court after this last season.
Russell Westbrook hate.
Isaiah, Gary makes a great transition. I'll ask you sort of your thoughts because he gave some thoughts on Darvin Ham. Your thoughts sort of on Russell Westbrook, because the more and more I Google around, the more and more reports I read, it sounds like Russell Westbrook is here to stay for another season. Talk me off of this ledge. Tell me why this is okay, or is this the end-all, be-all right here?
It's okay because I don't think there's, like I said, when we were talking about the NBA coaches early on, and I told you, I said, Dev, listen, it doesn't matter who they hire. The results is going to be the same. You understand? So look, but I will say this. I was pleasantly surprised with this pick. I mean, I didn't really like most of the other options, like guys like Doc Rivers. I'm like, you're going to just push that man closer to retirement. That's all you're going to do, having to manage those heads in the background. But I will say, this is a guy who just got done coaching Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, and if there's a guy that somebody like Anthony Davis needs, it's that, right? And if there's a guy like that somebody like Russell Westbrook needs, it's that. Okay, look, if you're the fact is Westbrook's trade value just probably isn't worth just sending off. Like, what are you really going to get? So you may as well just work with what you have. I mean, I still maybe there's still something with what we thought in the beginning, like they could just figure it out. Maybe that's still there. And if there is a guy for a guy like Darvin Ham, I think he is your best option at giving you a shot. But I do think, as far as even playoff aspirations, you're gonna have to make me believe again that they can even go for an 8th seed, which because we're really rolling out the same team next year. There's not much that you could really do here. But I like it. I like it better than the last guy you had in there. So I think, yes, I think this was as good as you could do. But let's talk about the team. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
So here's sort of my concluding thoughts, right? Darvin Ham was probably my number one, if not my number two choice. I'm extremely happy with the Darvin Ham signing that the Lakers went on to go with. I think he resembles, I put it in my article a while ago, that he's more focused on player development. That's where he, like we said, Giannis, huge season with Darvin Ham aside from him. When he was back with the Lakers, players were developing under Darvin Ham. And the big winner of this whole entire signing is going to be a younger guy like a Talen Horton-Tucker that left so much on the table this past season that he sort of needs to sort of get his act together now, because his value was at the point where he was going to get flipped around over for John Wall at some point, or Kyle Lowry at some point. People were willing to trade their starting point guards for Talen Horton-Tucker plus a draft pick. But now after this past season, you couldn't sell Talen Horton-Tucker for a bag of half-eaten potato chips. That's how bad he was this last season. So I'm happy with the signing, but I'm even more happy with a signing that we didn't even get to mention, which was Rasheed Wallace is coming in and as an assistant coach. Anthony Davis is getting a dog as an assistant coach. And Kendrick Perkins said it best. He thinks Anthony Davis, pending health, is going to be a top 5 player in the NBA next season.
Sorry. Can we clip that? Anthony Davis, pending health. I could have said that any year of his career.
Literally.
I'm sorry, but Anthony Davis. He's got to be said. Pending health is a big statement. It's a big pending.
Listen, pending health he's not. It's not that he could be a top 5 player. He is a top 5 player. He just has to be healthy. That's all he needs.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Darvin Ham put it best in his interview when he was in the press conference where he was getting introduced. He said he really wants to focus on taking the wear and tear off of LeBron James. The wear and tear on LeBron James came because Anthony Davis could not get on a basketball court. It came because Russell Westbrook was not playing efficient basketball. It came because they had zero depth with zero shooting. So LeBron James is out here playing 40 minutes a game. You should never have to have the 37-year-old play 37 minutes a game. It's just not how the NBA is built nowadays. And so I love sort of the mentality that this Lakers team's going to go in. Do I think that they're going to be a playoff team next season? I'm back. I'm back better than ever. The Lakers are going back to the playoffs, and they're going to make some noise in that Western Conference. Mark my words. Top 5 seed in the Western Conference next season.
Should I go on a rant about my Knicks now? Should I go on a rant about my Knicks?
I know we got to leave here soon, but I wanted to ask you both one question. Would you rather be paying Russell Westbrook what he's making next season, or would you rather be the Mets playing Bobby Bonilla for I don't know, whenever?
Oh, easily Bobby Bonilla. At least it's something to talk about every year. By April, we're not going to be talking about Westbrook. So
yeah,
the yearly. Why do the Nets still pay Bobby Bonilla $1.2 million? We're just going to be Russell Westbrook. It's going to be like, actually, I shouldn't even said that. Lou Deng literally is being paid by the Lakers for the next 3 years. So they got your own Bobby Bonilla over there in Los Angeles.
I can't say much. I think we just got done paying Joakim Noah on the Knicks, so I can't really say too much.
Yeah, well, Isaiah makes a great point, right? Where Russell West and Gary too make great points about Russell Westbrook. It's physically impossible to trade him because now every team that's even remotely interested in Russell Westbrook now wants the Lakers' next draft pick, and that's just something the Lakers cannot depart from because LeBron James is aging, because Anthony Davis can't stay healthy. That draft pick is so vital to them that they were unwilling to move it for Kyle Lowry, John Wall, and a variety of names at the trade deadline. So I'm not surprised that Russell Westbrook's going to be on the team still. It's going to be a really hard offseason. We really need all of those guys to stay healthy. But like I said, top 5 seed in the Western Conference. Mark it down. Clip it, do what you got to do.
If you could get a marginally good 3-point shooter, I envision a scenario with LeBron James working on his outside shot, and you got Anthony Davis pulling away the big man, playing the 5, pulling away from the court, and you got Westbrook driving into the paint at his best, kicking out all over, old-fashioned style of basketball. You're relying on the 3, but it's like now it's like outside in. If Westbrook can pull it into an inside out, you have a shot to be an 8th seed in the first round exit, but you'll be in there.
But I think that is a scenario that happens, and the offense does click like that. It does scream to me one of those memes you see on Twitter where it's like Russell Westbrook kicks back out to LeBron, his 3-pointer good. Lakers lose 122-97. Like the problem here was the defense all year, and without any additions, unless Anthony Davis comes back and is his defensive player of the year self. That's really the big screaming, glaring point that Darvin Ham will have to address in the offseason.
8th first round exit. They'll be all right.
I will say we do have the game coming up here.
Look at this. We're going live now.
There was a report that the Warriors' rim was strangely too high and paused their Game 3 warm-ups. So we see the Boston sports media bias trying to skew the NBA Finals. Listen, as a Heat fan, I have never wanted a Steph Curry jersey more than when he is going to drop 40 tonight. Right here. You heard it here first. Steph Curry shows up in big games. He dropped 50 in the MSG a couple of years ago, 2012. 55, I believe. That was a big coming out party for him. Let's see him drop 40 in the finals tonight. Game 3.
Wardell Stephen Curry is going to go off tonight. You heard it here first and second from myself.
There you go. But, all right, fellas, definitely enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back next week. We'll try to get a more stable time going. But episode number 21 is now in the books behind us. And like I said, let's see what happens, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you.
Peace out.